if you could, give us an overview in your own words, what is personal branding? There might be somebody watching here who's kind of like, isn't that some fancy marketing term that I don't really need to do anything with? So what, in your own words, is personal branding?
Yeah, I think the idea of personal branding is kind of, the word itself is a little bit cliche in a way, right? But like, it's incredibly important for us to think about sharing our thoughts with the world. And as we do that, over time, we kind of stumble upon our personal brand. I think there's a lot of people that think the word brand has to be me starting from ground zero with a logo,
Right.
and with a kitschy catchphrase and some things. But really, it's just, I'm John, and I have some thoughts. And that's it. That's where you start. I'm John, I have some thoughts. And now those thoughts are rooted in something that I'm passionate about, and something ideally that helps other people as well. And if you can marry those two things together, I think it's very powerful. But it's literally just starting with following your energy and saying, I'm about to write something. I'm going to write something. I'm going to dedicate myself to writing something because first, it's going to make me a better writer. Second, it's going to make me a better speaker. Third, if you're on video, it's going to make me powerful on video. It's going to make me reduce the amount of ums and likes that I say. And the power of communication from an employability standpoint is incredible. And it's also incredible if you're trying to jump out of corporate, if that's your goal one day. So it serves two purposes, and there's so much wrapped up into it, but I think you just have to start with, I'm going to post this one thing and see where it goes. And it has nothing to do with comments or likes or follows or anything like that. It's, I'm going to use this platform of social media as a virtual journal for me to become better at speaking and writing. And if nothing else, that's the goal. And then over time, you have a trail of breadcrumbs that you can look back at and say, it's funny that I never talk about project management, and I'm a project manager. Why is that? It's very self-reflective. And then it's funny that I never talk about this, although this is my job, but I talk about this thing and it has to do with, my interest. So those breadcrumbs, over time, you start to say 70% of my content is all about gardening, and 10% of my content is about project management. That's a fascinating insight that we don't spend enough time reflecting on. And there's too many societal forces at bay, I think, that misdirect us in the direction that we're trying to go. Yeah. So we have to push back by writing and reflecting.
So, I mean, I think about you come across as a very confident person, and I feel like you're comfortable in your own skin, and you could go out and post anything on LinkedIn, and it will probably resonate with people because you've got a huge following, right? And you also know your voice, you know what it is that you're trying to say. I mean, there are probably people that are watching this, John, that are like, personal branding, I can't just post anything. I mean, I don't even post now. I don't know you're telling me just go and post something and just talk about something. I mean, that's probably very overwhelming. I mean, did you ever feel that way too? Or were you just confident from day one and posting and what you're doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was never confident when I started. I was actually very fearful. I was borderline terrified. I recall in the very first YouTube video that I created 4.5 years ago, I stood in front of the camera. It was a 5-minute video. Wow. And I remember thinking, I mean, I must have created 20 hours of content and for that 5-minute video, because I never thought it was good enough. And it was just deeply rooted in insecurity. What are other people going to think? How am I going to be perceived? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Why am I talking about this? So, why would anyone want to listen to me? I mean, this was back when I had just really started at American Express, right? Wow. I had just come off of a massive failure working at Best Buy, having a failed company. So who am I and what do I have to say? So I was battling with my own kind of personal demons on things. And I thought that I needed the logo. Like if you look back at my YouTube videos from 4.5+ years ago, I had a shirt that said like John Marty on it. And it had a logo, and I had a watermark on the screen, and I had a green screen so that I can kind of, superimpose like a cool background with the John Marty, whatever. And it's too much. And I realized that all people really want to see
Yeah.
is just the authentic self. That's it. And
Right.
the authentic self behind a white wall, sitting in your $500 a month, shared apartment with your buddies and saying, I have this dream to go somewhere and I'm going to talk about my dream, where I want to go, and I'm going to have you see the evolution of me. That's it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I mean, that video you said it took, many hours, 25 hours, whatever, to get a 5-minute video clip. I mean, you could have at any point in the process said, forget it. I'm not going to do it. But what was it that kept you focused on getting it done and publishing it? And then, how did you grow and learn from that point on?
Yeah. So there's a lot of growing and learning from just like editing a video, or there's a lot of growing and learning from, posting content on LinkedIn in written form. You're writing something and when you put it out, you're pressure testing your thoughts. You're realizing that not everyone in the world believes the same things you do. And in corporate America, we kind of have this nicety layer, everyone is nice, everyone is cordial, but in social media, there's these forces and pressures. There are people hidden behind profiles that can be mean and things like that. And it really makes you over time stop caring about anybody's thoughts about what you're saying.
Yeah.
These are my opinions. They're shaped in personal beliefs, how I grew up, where I grew up, and all these things. And you recognize that other people have their own beliefs and where they grew up, and you realize, okay, no problem. Like you just take each one of those comments with kindness, as opposed to saying like, oh my God, am I not good enough?
Right.
So there was a lot of that going on in the first couple videos, the first couple times that I posted on LinkedIn.
But I like how you said too, John, you learned by doing, you learned by editing, you learned by posting, and you're not going to get to that point unless you take that first step, right? And
yeah, you really have to, but there's so much value in it. And you think about YouTube or you think about LinkedIn, and the first thing somebody will say is, there's so many people doing it. What value would I possibly add? And that's not the right question. Because if you look at the amount of people in every niche that are really doing it consistently, is very, very small.
True.
Whether it be on LinkedIn or whether it be on YouTube. If you search a niche for career-related YouTube videos, you're going to find the same 5 to 10 people who are consistent and who have been consistent over the past couple of years. And that's really it. It's a stone's throw to a handful of people. Same on LinkedIn. Whatever your niche might be, there's just a few people. And the stats on LinkedIn are overwhelming. There's 650 million or more people on LinkedIn who are on the platform. As far as content creators go, you're in the 30,000 to 50,000 people total realm. So very, very small. If you think about that from a percentage, it's 0.00005% of people who are actively creating content. And then break that down even further to people who post more than once a week and people who post maybe 3 to 5 times a week. And you start getting into this minuscule percentage. And then you realize, God, I could literally say and do whatever to grow my brand, and I don't have to pay for this.
Right.
Like I can infinitely scale me and I don't have to pay. What an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge opportunity on the platform. And you're talking about posting frequency, John. I'm curious because I hear a lot, get a lot of questions from people. How many times should I be posting? And I had a conversation with a client just this morning, and he hasn't posted for 2 months. And I said, why haven't you? And we were talking about it, and he's like, I don't want to flood my feed. And I said, there's no concern about you flooding if you're not posting every month. I mean, really, it's kind of like when you go on LinkedIn, it's people see it at that moment in time. But I tell people I even post like once a day. That's what I do. And I hear some people saying you should post 20 to 30 times a day. And those are people who have 5 million followers. Now you've got, I don't know, 250,000 or so followers, John. How many times a day or how many times a week do you post? I'm curious, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have no content calendar. I kind of just let the wind blow and let the feeling of the week kind of transpire. So
Okay.
I always post on Monday. I'll see if I post on Tuesday. I usually post on Wednesday, Thursday. So, I mean, I'm posting 3, maybe 5 times a week. And I think it depends on how much engagement that I'm getting on a post. Like, for example, if I get a post on a Monday morning that goes super viral, I will spend the majority of my time. I will save the rest of my, I won't post anything else for the week. And
Okay.
I will focus solely on engaging with the comments in my post
Mm.
and the comments that are in the shares of my post, because that's extending my reach into second and third degree connections. And that is incredibly valuable from an algorithmic perspective on a social media platform.
Yeah.
To be engaging with people that are not already in your network and knowing who you are. So yeah.
So I'm showing you guys John's feed on screen right now, just so you can kind of see this, and I'll put his LinkedIn URL in case you want to visit him. John R. Marty is the ending of that URL, but look at his activity feed for those folks that are watching. You know, we're talking about how often do you want to post? Should you be posting? What should you be posting? And I loved your thought too, John. And here's one from 5 days ago. You were talking about salary negotiation. And this post, kind of blew up, right? You got 627 reactions, 78 comments. And I'm guessing if I click in here, you're replying back and you're nurturing those, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to literally reply to every single comment. And sometimes that can take me hours and hours, but
Yeah.
the goal of social media is to build a community,
Right.
right? It's to build trust. And if you're not engaging, right, that is part of it. You have to engage with people who are writing comments to you. And then some people ask people like, John, how do you find the content for
Yeah.
all of these posts? And I say, it's the comments, right? It's the community who's pressure testing my ideas, who has different thoughts, who then I'm able to say, geez, am I thinking about this the right way? Am I missing a point? What's the hot button in this issue? What can I bring back up to the surface as a secondary post and elaborate on further? So there's all these ways to kind of keep engaging, and the comments are a beautiful thing.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I love how you said you don't use a content calendar because there's a lot of discussion about structure and but I'm kind of the same way as you, John. I take the wind where it blows me. And even
Yeah,
this morning I was like, I don't know what I'm going to post today, but I need to post something. And I was on a call this morning and my friend Carolyn was saying, what do I post? And we were giving her ideas. Like, here's what you like, just post about what's happening in your life.
yeah,
And I was kind of like feeling like, I'm not in corporate anymore. And I remember my corporate days where, sometimes you work with a boss who it never says anything nice to you. So every once in a while, I'll just do one of these posts. And I did one today and I said, and my inspiration was, when you go to the convenience stores and there's the take a penny, leave a penny jar.
yeah,
So
yeah.
take one if you have one, and or if you need one, and leave one if you have an extra. It's kind of like the same thing, but I put inspiration in there, and I said, here's some inspiration, kind of like some attaboys, things like, I'm glad you joined my team. I appreciate your effort. I just put a bunch of nice little things, and I said, if you haven't heard this from anyone, likely go ahead and take one. And if you can think of any other nice comments to leave, go ahead and leave one. And it's getting some nice traction. But
Yeah.
I mean, it has nothing to do with, to your earlier point, what I do for my business. It doesn't talk about marketing consulting or LinkedIn strategy.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a personality element. So talk to us about personal branding and how does it need to encompass your career, your business? Is it personality? What's the blend in your opinion there?
Yeah, I think there's a short-term and long-term strategy with any of this, and there's also a strategy with regard to younger individuals who may be starting their careers. So if anybody listening right now is young and they're trying to kind of break into corporate, that's their first mission, then the content strategy should be all around what value do I bring in this particular field?
Yeah.
Not I'm a thought leader. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I'm sharing my writing ability because a recruiter will stumble upon an article and say, this is really well written. And one of the most valuable things in corporate is to have a very solid way of articulating your thoughts on paper,
Yes.
especially at top tech companies. I mean, it is the most important thing in the world to have solid writing. So that's from a short-term strategy, super young. I'm getting into the game, right? But then there is the I'm in the game now. I have a solid career. What do I want to post about?
Right.
And I think you just have to follow the energy, and you have to think about the long-term strategy. I have a lot of people will say to me, John, well, my 10-year goal is to write a book and be a thought leader on this topic. And I'm like, okay, you literally have to start that now, because it's going to take you 5 to 10 years of
Right.
building to that thing. So you have to work backwards from where you really want to be, and you have to start embodying that right now in your content. Because if you're not, the problem is you're going to be known as the project manager, right? And if you don't necessarily want to be known for the project manager, or if you don't want to go to a barbecue on the weekend and talk about project management, that's fatiguing you, then recognize that signal and don't post nearly as much about that type of topic. Now, a lot of different social media platforms, a lot of different strategies, right? Like LinkedIn is, you can post on a broad array of topics, and that's totally fine, especially if you're not trying to monetize it, right? If you're trying to monetize it, niche down, be ultra specific, and say, I help business leaders do this and this and this, contact me in the comments, right? Like hyper target. But if you're trying to learn your personal brand, then start, dabbling in a bunch of things. And then your job is to narrow over time. Now, YouTube, very different. It's like, if you want to be successful on YouTube, you need to have a YouTube channel that's like, all I talk about is salary negotiation, and every single day is going to be a new salary negotiation topic, how to do this. That's it. So, yeah.
And there are people that are looking for that content. I mean, and they might just stumble on one video, but I don't know about you, John. It's kind of like going down a rabbit hole. I find John's one video about salary negotiation, and it's the thing I was looking for, and then it's in a playlist, so I watch the next one, and I watch the next one, and I end up, like, nowadays too, working from home, we're all doing this, right? And I kind of like have my YouTube videos just playing in the background, and it's kind of like listening to a podcast. I'll just listen to one video after another, and kind of pause sometimes. But yeah, I think it's a great way of bringing people in on one topic, one nuance of that topic, like you said, and then continuing to go deeper and deeper. I want to switch gears because I saw something in your LinkedIn profile, John, and I want to ask you about this. I'm going to go back to your profile right now. So you've got this thing in your headline, and I was kind of, as you were talking, I was thinking, what does John have in his headline? And you have, and I want you to give us a little bit of explanation about each of these. Okay. So the first thing you have is LinkedIn Top Voice. Then it says Founder Project 1B, and I read a little bit more about that, but I want you to describe that for folks. Yeah. And then Man on a Mission. So tell us a little bit about each of those elements, because I think this is really a nice tie-in to your personal brand.
Yeah, so I see my value now that I've been creating content for a couple of years. My value is far elevated out of corporate America. So I, in fact, have made a conscious decision to bury the fact that I work for corporate, because I'm playing the mental strategy of what's 5 to 10 years out, right? So Project 1B is this broad mission that I have, this broad mission that I want to dedicate my life to, which is 1B stands for 1 billion, and it's a mission to help 1 billion people around the world find a deeper sense of meaning in their careers and their lives. And when I think about that mission, it starts to make me really uncomfortable because it's big and audacious, and I honestly have no worldly idea how to solve that yet. But I'm thinking 10 years ahead. I'm thinking my subconscious mind, every time I'm going to sleep, is like, how do I do this, right? And the reason why I want to do this so badly is because I was incredibly lost 6 years ago. And I spent thousands and thousands of hours over the past 6 years doing self-reflection, doing writing, doing the creation, and really understanding, like, who do I want to be and why? Why do I want to be this? Who do I want to be? And that was constantly the question. The question that kept running through my head was, what would be the one thing I'd do for the rest of my life if I didn't need to get paid doing it? And how does it help people? And that was my funnel question. And the result of that funnel question was Project 1B. And I think that if you look at Gallup studies, even the most recent one about job satisfaction. I mean, over 70% of people in the US and worldwide are completely dissatisfied
Right.
with the work that they're doing. And why are they dissatisfied? They've never been given the tools, first of all, to ground themselves in what truly is happiness, what truly is a meaningful life. And by the time they hit 35 or 40, they go, God, I've been in school for 20 plus years, and I
Right.
have literally zero skills to deal with my own life.
Right.
And so this kind of helps answer that question. But anyway, that's the long-winded way of the rationale for my headline.
I think it's awesome. So LinkedIn Top Voice, tell us a little bit about that too, because that's kind of like a nice accolade to have. I mean, how did they stumble upon you? Did you apply to that? Did someone nominate you? What, and some people might be watching going, LinkedIn Top Voice, what does that mean? Like, could you explain that for us?
Yeah, so LinkedIn has an algorithmic way of determining who rises to the top from a top voice standpoint. And it's based on the amount of content that someone's created. So it's a combination. Any algorithm is a combination of factors put together to spit out a result.
Okay.
Right. So essentially, the algorithm is just how many posts somebody's created, how much engagement has been on the post, the percentage of engagement per post, or total percentage of engagement for the year, how many times the person creating the content has engaged back, right? How much conversation, deep, meaningful conversations are happening, and are they shaping? I think that, so it's those kind of baseline metrics of like who's creating a lot and getting a lot of engagement, and who do we think as a team of individuals at LinkedIn marries the kind of direction that we're trying to take the organization. So it's the mission of the company married with the type of content that people are creating. So I was extremely surprised that it happened. I was honored that it happened. They hit me up like 2 weeks before and said, we're considering you for Top Voice. And I was like,
so did they tap you and say, is it okay if we feature you? Or do they just say you're on the list? Like, how does that process happen?
So I got an email from Andrew. He's one of the editors at LinkedIn. And he said, you've been shortlisted for Top Voice in the career content side of things. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he said, there's all these algorithmic factors that lead into this. And we've kind of made a short list, and us internally, we've made some selections. And then they said, would it be okay for us to proceed? And I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, right. You're going to tell LinkedIn, no, please don't feature me. I don't
want No, sorry. Thank you.
Well, that's very cool, Jen. Thank you for sharing, because I'm sure like some people are kind of wondering, and we don't often get a look behind the curtain at LinkedIn to understand what their thought processes are and how these things come about. And it's interesting. I think it's a respect thing too, that they reached out, like not you're going to say no, but just as a courtesy to let you know, because you also don't want to hear it the first time from somebody in your network. Hey, I see that you're LinkedIn Top Voice. You're like, I'm what?
I totally agree. Yeah. It's like this total shocker. You're like, wait, whoa, what happened? Yeah.
Well, what I'd like to do now we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. I want to invite our audience. If you guys have any questions for John, drop a comment below. And remember, if you joined me a little late, I give a little bit of a tip here, because the live stream can be a bit odd. If you're watching on LinkedIn, you may notice if you leave a comment, sometimes it kind of flickers and then you lose the stream for a couple seconds. So here's what I do. Watch the live stream like on your desktop or whatever, and then go to your LinkedIn profile on your phone. Actually, go to my profile, go to the activity section and find the activity, the live stream from there, and then leave a comment from your phone. That way you can keep watching. If you ask a question, you can see as I'm asking it to John and not miss any of the response. But even if you're watching this in playback, still leave a comment, because I'll share the link with John later. And if it's something we haven't addressed, that he might have some resources or blogs or videos, maybe he can help you out with that. So I'm going to the comments right now, and I'll start to pull your guys' comments and questions up on screen as well. Do you know Sweta Regmi? She's a career.
I do. Yeah. Sweta interviewed me on her show as well. Thanks, Sweta.
I feel like all the really cool people know each other, so that's why I'm like, when I see a person's name, I'm like, you have to know her. Like,
she's great.
She's one of the rock stars too, and she's in the 100K version of the list as
Yeah,
well.
she's grown a lot.
Yeah. So we're talking about personal branding, and Pam is wondering, John, can you talk a bit about how all of these things we've been talking about today, personal branding, posting, things like that, how that's translated into paid clients, or maybe it's paid opportunities or career moves, or things like that.
Yeah, of course. Great question, Pam. So from a corporate standpoint, I actually, my hands are tied a little bit as far as getting paid clients. But here's what I can tell you from a strategic side of things of actually, if like that's your mission, I know all about it. I just am not allowed to do it. So the thing that you want to do is you want to really understand like who is my audience. And what you can do is you can do a webinar, or you can do a live stream, you can do a show like this. A lot of times when people are doing shows like this, they're actually doing email capture. So saying like, I'm going to do a free show. I'm going to, put your email in and show up at a certain predefined time, right? So now you have a set of audience emails, and Facebook ads are incredibly powerful from a lookalike audience standpoint. You plug those emails into Facebook and you can say, give me people like this who care about this topic.
Right.
And you can find out if, the thing is, you got to have an offer, right? You got to have an offer. It's got to be clear. It's got to be some kind of online course.
Some call to action, right?
Some kind of call to action to kind of lead gen things. So LinkedIn is a great place to kind of test market those opportunities, see how many people that are engaging with your content. And I don't like to kind of hard sell things. I like to say like, here's tons of free stuff, because the reality is, even on my YouTube channel, like people will stumble upon my YouTube channel and then they'll go, they'll be there for like 2 minutes. They might watch like 1 minute or 2 minutes of a video and go, there's tons of stuff here. Clearly this person knows what they're going to do or knows how to do it. I need to reach out to them. Yeah. So you could literally give away the farm on YouTube, and nobody is going to take the time to dedicate themselves to watching all the content. They want quick wins. So
they want you to guide them, right?
They want you to guide them directly. So all these places where you can get free lead gen, give away, like literally give away the farm. And then that becomes a funnel for you to never hard sell.
I love it. And I want to add to that too, John. I think a lot of what you've been talking about is when you're posting content, whether it's sharing a video or putting up a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post, you're sharing information, freebies, if you will, free samples. And what I kind of think about is like when you go to the fruit market, and, back in the day, they used to have like the samples. They'd be like, here, try a little bit of cheese or salami or something during the holidays. Yeah. And you would taste it. And then you'd walk through the store and you keep thinking, God, that cheese was really good. Right. And then what do? You go back to the deli counter and you look up to see how much is the cheese per pound. And then you take the little number and you order it, right? And it's the same thing, I think, with social media content. You put out the free samples for people, and then let them decide if they want to purchase. And then if they're interested, they're going to come back to your profile, or they're going to go to your company page, or they're going to look up in your YouTube header, or they're going to look in your about description. And now we're not pushing sales messages on them. No, we're drawing them to us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so critical. And Pam, so here's another thing on this. I have a good friend of mine, Yasser Khan. He posts on LinkedIn quite a bit. He's talking all about like sales. Okay. Yeah. So his niche is like how to overcome like, negative feedback when it comes to sales, like how to land the sale, all that power of persuasion, young guy, mid-20s. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got about 3,000-ish subscribers. Guy's making 12-ish K per month. And literally all he does, he's got a link in each one of his YouTube videos, very non-committal, that's connected to a Google form. And it's just a lead qualifier. And it says like, are you committed to XYZ type of coaching? How much you're willing to spend, blah, blah, blah. And he jumps on a call, closes a deal, 12 grand a month, right? Done. Like dude quit his job. So 3,000 subscribers.
Yeah. You just got to know that balance, right? And kind of related to that, Jack has a question. He really likes to keep his brand focused on being honest, not really sugarcoating things, but he runs into challenges he doesn't want to be seen as arrogant. He wants to make sure he's being seen as adding value with the things that he's posting. What are your thoughts there, John?
I mean, the arrogance side of things, like I'd have to look at the posts, right? But the arrogance, maybe you write in an edgy way or something like that. Um, you know, everyone is going to feel differently about the type of content or perceive the type of content that you create. They're all going to perceive it differently. So if you're getting comments quite frequently where people say, you know, you're getting a hint that maybe your tone is arrogant, maybe that's something that you should try to tone down. I think you could still deliver a message and say, you know, these are my thoughts, like these are my opinions, or this that I'm sharing is backed by data. What do you all think? So there's ways that you can kind of remove that element from it, and it's still just as
Soften it a little bit, right?
impactful. Yeah, yeah. Unless your personality is just straight up edgy, and that's your authentic you, and it has been forever, then lean into it, right?
Yeah.
Like Gary Vee, people think that he's very arrogant and polarizing, but you know, he's done very well for himself.
Yeah.
So
He's got an approach, and I think you gotta.
Yeah.
I think with all of this, I mean, we were talking earlier about your authentic voice and being vulnerable a little bit, you know, and you have to figure out what works.
Yeah.
And then once you get there, kind of own it. I mean, sometimes you guys see, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I will kind of like, I'll do like humble brag alert. Like, I just published a book, and I'll be like going on about how excited I am about it. I mean, is that bragging? Maybe a little, but it was hard work doing that, you know.
Yeah,
so
it's hard work.
Own it. And I like to think about, Jack, when I'm posting on LinkedIn, I like to think about I'm talking to one person. And I appreciate, Jack, that you're even like the thought of like, is this arrogant rising up in you? That's a good thing. Is it yourself regulating? If you're feeling that way, then you've got a good sense about it, right? I guess is what I'm saying. And if I'm talking to one person, Jack, I'm not going to brag about myself, because we don't do that to human beings, like one-to-one. When we're posting on LinkedIn or posting, you know, sometimes I can be like, hey, world, look at me, look how great I am. Then it might be like a little, but if you think about, if you're sitting across the table from John, like, what would you say to John? You wouldn't brag to John. Like, you'd just be having a conversation with him, right? Yeah. Is that, I mean, is that a technique you use too, John, when you're posting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're trying to speak to one person, and I like to talk a lot about failure, because failure has given me the perspective that I have today. I do talk about successes as well, but I usually talk about successes of other people. So yeah,
that's the way to do it, right? Focusing on others. And I saw this question come in, and I wanted to bring it up on screen, John. I'm curious. Joey's asking, what advice would you give to your younger self? This is always a great hindsight 2020. So what advice would you give to your younger self?
So I like to say that I would never change the things that have happened in my life, because they've given me the perspective that I needed and that I have today to go where I want to go. Right. It's led me to meeting my wife. It's led me to having my son. It's led me to Amazon and what I'm thinking about Project 1B in the future. So all of those things are very valuable. If I were to dig in a little bit and remove those elements and say, you know, really critically think on some of these things, I would very much have focused early on the idea of directing towards financial freedom as early as physically possible. I would have started early in my 20s. And I had this idea that entrepreneurship in the first 13 years of my career was going to be the key to financial freedom. I've found an avenue within large tech companies to find financial freedom, and I live very simply, and I use every single dollar of that to put towards investments that will uncage me, if you will, and allow me to do literally whatever I want. Because I think ultimately, at the end of the day, all anyone really wants to do is be authentically themselves and to explore and experiment on things that light them up and make them feel alive 24/7, right? Because life is very short. So, you know, I probably would have gotten into a large tech company sooner instead of pursuing the entrepreneurial route, which seems very sexy to a lot of people on the surface. But when you get into it, most people realize that the average salary of an entrepreneur over the course of their tenure is like 60 grand. And it doesn't allow you to kind of make moves, and large tech companies allow you to make big moves. So I probably would have spent 10 years in big tech, every single dollar and got out.
Yeah. That's good. Good advice. And it is like a hindsight thing, looking
Yeah.
back. But I always am intrigued by that question too, because I feel like if we were to do anything different, then we may not be where we are today. And so your same point, I met my husband at the time that I did because of the course that I went through and the actions I took, and we had our children at the time I did because of all those actions too.
Yeah.
But it is something where and maybe there's maybe somebody watching here who's thinking, when I graduate from college, I want to go on my own, but they're hearing this advice from me, they're like, oh, I didn't think about that. So it's good advice to share with others. Well, any closing comments, John, or final pieces of advice as we're wrapping up this conversation on personal branding here today? Anything you'd like to share with folks?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me is, do everything you can, set aside time to find your authentic voice. It takes a lot of time. It's not an easy thing. And we spend, over 2,000 hours a year at work, but rarely spend any time on self-reflection and personal development. So pressure test your thinking, your ideas, spend time reading outside of work, communicating with people who believe different things than you,
Yeah.
And spend time reflecting and writing as much as physically possible. Because if you can even put 10% of the time that you put into your day job, into your personal brand, and into understanding a clear direction for yourself, a rudder for your ship, right? You will accelerate your growth more than you can possibly imagine.
Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone, and we'll see you around on LinkedIn. Take care, everyone.